That was good. That was good.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that. That was done completely in in-game engine. Those were scenes taken out. None of that was rendered, pre-rendered, or recreated, or Pixar'd, or however you want to put it. It was all done in the game, and that's the level of graphics, that's the level of action that we are planning and aiming for and having. And some of that you will see, some of the combat that you saw in here, we'll see in the demo later on in the game. So. Just to give you a really quick overview of what we are after, why we're even bothering doing another RPG game if there's so many out there that are in this market. One of the things as RPG players ourselves that we have found is somewhat lacking is the combination of action, and fast-paced and tactical action, with a really compelling story. You have stories alongside action, and you have action without any story, or vice versa. But it's very rare that those two are integrated and put together in such a way that it makes a coherent whole. And so combining dynamic action with a captivating story is the main thrust of what we're doing. And obviously it has to look amazing, it has to play really well, it has to do all the things that are standard right now in the market. So. What we're doing is it's a brief description of the world itself. The world it's a fantasy world, but it's different than what most people are used to. It is not a good versus evil world. It is a world where the choices you as Geralt of Rivia, which we'll talk about a little later, make are almost like you choose the lesser evil, or you could choose the greater evil. It's up to you as a player. But the Lucas-esque sort of good force, bad force clash, and good always wins, or something like that doesn't exist here. It's a real world. All of us know that there isn't, a clear-cut difference there. It is based on, actually we'll talk about that later, but you have real people in the game. They do their own things. They do their own work. You've got laundry women down by the river. You've got beggars. You've got people doing whatever they do in a normal life. Time affects that, so at night you'll have bad guys, thieves, or whatever. During the day you'll have normal people walking around that you can talk to. It's up to you what time you want to go out and what you want to face in the world. It's a very harsh world. The world is based on books by Andrzej Sapkowski, who's probably the most popular fantasy writer in Poland. His books have been translated into, I think, 6 or 7, even more languages around the world. And his world is very, very gritty. He doesn't mince words. He doesn't pull punches as far as what goes on. There's sex, violence, vulgarity. It's all there. We're based on those books. So one of the other things is he also deals with real life issues. Some of the things here, racism and totalitarianism. He refers to quite a bit. Race wars between elves, dwarves, gnomes, humans. That's one of the main thrusts in his stories, and we are also going to be presenting that. Go to the next one. So who is Geralt? What is a Witcher? I don't know if you guys read Penny Arcade, but they actually took a crack at us at one point about what this Witcher thing is. The Witcher is clearly a made-up word. It is a made-up word. The Polish word for this is also made up. There is no word Wiedźmin in the Polish language. It's a whole new class of fantasy character. These guys are basically from birth trained to kill. They are extremely good fighters. They are magically imbued. They're mutated so that they have superhuman abilities like enhanced senses, speed, things of that sort. They're excellent fighters. The whole point of why they exist is to kill magical monsters. If a village is being terrorized by a vampire somewhere, they can put out a call saying we will give X amount of money, X amount of gold for somebody to come and kill this monster, this vampire for us. A Witcher will find out about that sooner or later, will swing by and get some cash for knocking out a vampire. So clearly these guys aren't just mercenaries for hire. They don't go around killing whoever you want because that's beneath them. They are focused almost exclusively on the tougher, undead, magical, whatever kind of beasts. Demons and things of that sort. Geralt himself is the best Witcher. So we figure if we're going to make a game about Witchers, we might as well go for the top of the line, right? I mean, why settle for less? He is just the best of all of them. He's survived a boatload of things that no one else has seen. He's ageless, so he can be killed, but he doesn't age. it's kind of a difficult thing to live with, I think, as a character. But you know, he makes the best of it. He controls every aspect of his body, almost like an Eastern monk. He controls metabolism, his digestion, all that kind of stuff. He's very characteristic in terms of appearance, white hair and cat-like eyes. He's also an extremely good lover. One of the things that are focused on in the books is that all the women, a lot of the mage women, Triss, who's on these posters, is actually one of them. They're all really digging him, and he has to deal with, you know, keeping him away. So yeah, it's a tough life, but you know, he makes the best of it. So okay, let's go on to the next one. Visually stunning action. It's a point-and-click RPG, but it's an idea here is that we allow the player to control the combat. It's not a matter of choosing an enemy and saying, okay, go fight this guy, and maybe occasionally I'll cast a spell. It's every element of what The Witcher does is controlled by the player, and we'll see that in the demo in a bit. The other cool thing here, not only is are we using motion captured animations for an RPG, which is also a little weird, but the results are very cool. We're using the Karma physics engine, which allows us to do things like heads rolling after they get cut off from guys, and ragdoll physics for dead bodies, and all kinds of gruesome things like that. And then there is also the other side of it is, as I mentioned in the vision, is the story side of it. We want to make sure that when the player plays through, they don't just go, oh yeah, kind of cool story, but I want to really go and kill some monsters. It's, wow, I can't believe I'm taking part in this epic tale and this saving the king, or you know, or developing the events in the world, things of that sort. Lots of twists and turns, lots of differences in terms of how you play, so the replayability value is going to be pretty high because the effects you have on the world are going to be fairly significant. The other thing that will also add to replayability is the fact that there is a realistic time flow, and events happen based on that time flow. So your entrance into a situation will vary depending on what time or when you get to that situation. This will obviously be scripted and controlled, so we don't end up with somebody going completely nuts. We're not crazy, but it will give the effect that if I arrive somewhere a few hours later, I will have missed a bunch of things that I could have experienced, but then I have a whole other set of things to experience. So there's never going to be a bad side to that. You can go on. So arcade, as I mentioned earlier, it's arcade style combat, but with a tactical element that we'll see and we'll talk about later. Geralt, we have a feeling he's going to become very, very popular over time. He is a very dark, cool sort of anti-hero. And then the fantasy world, which is drawn from literature, which has, I think it's what, like 15 years old now, the whole story itself.
15 years old, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a huge hit. It's obviously translated mostly in Eastern Europe, although I think there is a Spanish version in some other countries. So it is spreading. Maybe in another 5 years you will have an English version, and we will actually have the original short story about The Witcher to give out to you in English today, so you can kind of get a flavor of that. Okay, so we've been at work for 20 months. We're going to be creating a world-class PC RPG game, and now we can get to actually showing you what the game looks like. And we still have to kill the office little dude. So what we'll be doing here is we'll be starting off in some canals. What the thrust of the story is, we have arrived in this town, and we are there on a mission to tell the king that he is in danger. Unfortunately, the king is pretty high up there. Witchers aren't very welcome in most towns, except when they're necessary. And so in order to get to the king, we find out that there is a monster in this town that is basically bothering the populace, and the king has put out a reward for it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and kill this monster so that we can get in to see the king, and at the same time then warn him about other events. Of course, besides just that monster that we need to find in these canals, there's all kinds of other things. So here we're getting into the fight stuff. Well, what I will do is over time, as you kind of get to see how this looks, I will describe in more detail the actual fight sequences and what Jacek is doing to talk about the fights, the combat styles. One of the things that The Witcher is well known for is his alchemy. He is an alchemist. He walks around. When he kills monsters, he collects, fingers, toes, guts, whatever, and then mixes them up for all kinds of elixirs. What we've done now is we've drunk a night vision elixir. If we can slow down for a second, so that we can see in the dark. One of the things we'll start seeing, this is one of the changes we've made to the Aurora engine that this game is based on. You will see little red spots. What's happening right now is because I took an elixir as Geralt, I am now being poisoned. There's a level of poison that every elixir has that Geralt has to deal with. The more elixirs you take at once without deep meditation to cleanse yourself, the more poisoned you get until you get to the point where you might actually die. So there is a cost to drinking elixirs. We are seeing the first signs of it, and we are able to do full screen effects to make that happen. If we go on now and see what else we can find in here. But one of the story thrusts is definitely going to be that you can find out new formulas, new potions, things of that sort. And the other aspect, so one aspect that Geralt has besides the combat side of it, he's got the alchemy going for him. The other side of things is he's got 6 signs that he can cast that he will learn over time through the game. The one that was just used is called Ard. It is a telekinetic force. This is a great way for us to show off the physics engine as well, be able to put a bunch of objects, have them knock down, suits of armor, all kinds of things like that. We've gotten our first glimpse of who we're after. He's a very evasive creature. So what we've done, this is going to be where we talk a little bit about how the combat system works, because so we can walk out into the light. There we go. So what we've done in the combat system is we've created a system where it's fairly simple in terms of the basics, but can get very involved for the player. We have 2 swords that the Witcher uses. If we could pause for a second. Thank you. Can we pause, Jacek? Thank you. So what happens is we've got 2 swords, a silver sword and a steel sword. The 2 swords, each of the 2 swords have 3 combat styles associated with them. A strong combat style, a fast combat style, and a group combat style. The difference between the swords is that one sword, the steel sword, is for mundane opponents. Rogues, fighters, humans, no one who's magical. What it does is it does more damage, but it has no effect on magical creatures. The silver sword is then for the magical creatures. It does less damage, but has a magical effect. So you can use the silver sword against human opponents. It'll be a much harder fight because you'll just be, kind of knocking at them. But if it's a magical creature, the silver will actually affect them and hurt them a lot more. So that's one of the decisions as a player that you have to make in the game. Which sword do you use at which situation with which monster? The second decision that you make is which style of combat you're going to use. There's 3 styles. There's the strong, the fast, and the group. If you're being swarmed by a bunch of little nitpicky things, and you want to clear through them really quickly, you do the group style. The swings in the group style affect multiple characters at once. It's just really strong, really broad, so it's not a very pinpoint sort of combat style. It's something that we've been using, these guys aren't so strong, and so Jacek has been using the strong style, and what you will notice is, as he swings, with each swing, multiple characters, multiple opponents get the little hit point red markers going off on them. If you were using one of the other styles, then he would be doing a one-on-one sort of fight. Strong style, which we'll see later when we face the Skullhead, much slower, much more ponderous, much more kind of measured, but man, when you hit, it does a lot of damage. You can't use that against fast opponents though, because they will just dodge every one of your swings. And that's where the fast style comes in. Opponents who dodge, who evade, who run around, you use that and you attack them. Each style in each sword, with each sword, has different properties, has different abilities. So we can go on with the fight now. We'll talk about the sequences as well. What happens is as you fight, you can put together sequences of moves. The cursor right now, when it's green, that means that's the best point to initiate the next step in the sequence. You can have up to five blows in sequence. So starts a fight. When the green cursor comes on, he can do the next swing, and the next swing, and the next swing. By the time he gets to the 5th swing in a sequence, if he nails it right, you get, spectacular effects. You get, double over, backwards, spinning with things flying around and additional effects being cast. Those things you learn over time as you develop your character. So when your character gains levels, you will be able to add to your combat swings special abilities. For example, if I do 3 swings in order correctly, I will then be able to cause a stun effect on the opponent I'm fighting. And so at that point, once he's stunned, cool, I can move on to another character or whatever, or I can finish him off with a finishing move. So there's all kinds of things that will be added with each swing that you can then gain from by spending experience points on. The other thing that this allows you to do, so you basically have to click on the character that you're going to be fighting with the swing. The other cool thing about this is that the sequence does not get broken even if you decide to attack somebody else. So if you got 3 guys fighting against you, you've got one here, one there, I can initiate the combat sequence on the guy in front of me, take the next hit on the guy next to me, and then finish the guy with the guy behind me, and that's still part of the sequence. And so this gives the player the ability to tactically decide what they're going to do, what fight style they're going to use. It's very easy to switch combat styles, so if I'm being mobbed by 3 little guys and 1 big guy, I can do group style really quickly, finish the little guys off, and then switch immediately with my mouse to the strong style, do the big guy. What we're after is almost like a console level of involvement in the combat, so it's not all just done on the back end with statistics, it's part of what you do in the game. What we're going to do now is we're going to head on in, and it's kind of dark and gloomy over there, so what we're going to do is we're going to use another potion. This is a strong or advanced elixir of night vision, and don't mind the UI, it's obviously a work in progress. What this does is not only does it give you night vision, but it also allows you to see through walls. And what we're seeing here, there's a wall that ends right here. What we're seeing is that there's a character in the distance there who's lurking and waiting for us. We're not quite ready to deal with him right now. We want to relax, we want to rest a little bit. At this point his health isn't so bad, but if it turned out that our health was low, we could meditate. What you're also noticing here, before we take the rejuvenation potion, what you're also noticing here is that the level of poisoning is much stronger. His heartbeat is stronger, there's more spots on the screen. This is to indicate to you you're now approaching a more dangerous level of poisoning. It's not going to be so easy to get out of it. What he did to clear that is he took a rejuvenation potion, which is one of the few potions in the game that don't have a poisoning effect. They actually get rid of your poison. Also, one other point is poison can be gotten rid of through deep meditation in taverns, in stop points. Style against this character. It's a big character, it's a big hulking, strong hit, so we don't have to worry about him running or dodging too much. You notice every time there's a green cursor, Jacek initiates the next hit. And what you'll see is that there's sequences of strokes that get put together and animations that are more and more advanced with each stroke of the sequence. What you also notice is the effects of our combat are actually displayed on the characters we fight. So when you do hit something, it will get scratched, it will start bleeding, we will start getting blood on our sword. All of that is an element within the game. So what he's just used now is another one of the signs he has. It's called the Quen sign. what it does is create a magical shield around you. While you have the sign on, you can then drink, you know, heal up, or whatever else you need to do. Signs also have a cost, just like elixirs. Casting a sign uses vitality. You have to let that regenerate before you can cast another sign. It's obviously not fully balanced yet, but this is one of the things that we want to focus on, as we mentioned, as part of the story. What you get here is a moral dilemma, a kind of a difficult decision you have to make, and we're going to have these throughout the game. Turns out this monster is asking for help. So you were originally sent down into the catacombs to kill a monster, bad guy, whatever. You encounter him, when right before you kill him, he tells you, "Hold on, I'm not, you know, I'm not the monster that you think I am. I'm actually a cool guy, and I just got turned into this beast." And you get to choose. Do you want to save this monster and believe him, or do you want to nail him and kill him like what we did just now? What will happen is throughout the game, while you're going through the catacombs, you will encounter other clues that help you decide one way or another. You might find a dead body with some information on it. You might find some other character that says, you know what, actually this guy really, really is a bad guy and he's just a liar. Whatever. At that point, it's up to you to decide whether you save this monster or not, and that will affect whether you get in to see the king right away or not. So it has effects on everything that you do in the game. Out of the catacombs. So we've gotten his head. We've decided we're not going to take any bullshit from him. We're just going to nail him and move on. We need to see the king, and that's the overarching goal that we have today. And what we're going to do is we're going to exit out of the canals onto the pathway between the two parts of town. And this is what we'll see now is the fact, another manifestation of the fact that time actually affects the way the game works. We exit out of the canals in the early morning, and so daylight is just about coming up. There's a sunrise on the other side here. If we were to come out earlier, we'd be in the middle of the night. There'd be people with torches. There'd be more thieves. If we came out later, there would be other events that are happening that we'll talk about a little later. This is another element of the different things that will happen at different times. Because we have the Skullhead's head on us, these guys are kind of going, hey, we want that because we want the reward. If we didn't have the Skullhead's head on us, these guys would leave us alone and we'd have some other things that we'd have to do. So everything in the game is interrelated and somehow it is affected. If you're especially good with your sequences, you get rewarded with a slow motion picture of death and destruction. That's always a good thing with players. So clearly this is not going to be a game that's teen rated. It is going to be an M-rated game. We have no delusions whatsoever about that. We're not going to be watering it down. The source story by Sapkowski, the books, would not allow us to do that because we have to water down the actual concepts behind the game. The other thing that we're trying to focus on is a slightly different environment. What we'll be doing is doing more of something that doesn't exist really in RPG games today. Is more of an Eastern European feel to the surroundings. If we look at the castle across the way on the island, that's it. There we go. Out there, that's not really the kind of castle that you would expect in an Anglo-Saxon game. It's got slightly, it's a little different architecture, different setup. It's a different environment. We will be doing a lot of that in the game, which is kind of this feel of, yeah, this is medieval, but it's not the kind of medieval that we see in Baldur's Gate or whatever. It's got a slightly different feel to it. We'll have random encounters, or semi-random. I mean, you can talk to pretty much anyone who's walking around and they will have something to tell you. There's going to be lots of NPCs in the game that you will be able to converse with. And also those will be affected by the time of day where you go. So what we're heading now is to the entrance to the castle to talk to the captain of the guard. It's morning, so he's now out in front of the castle, and we can tell him we've got the Skull's head, Skullhead's head.
Sure. And for 20 pounds, it'll stay just between you and me.
So now we've gone through there, we now are heading into the castle, and we think, well, we're set. We've gotten into the castle, we've gotten the Skullhead's head. All that it takes now is go to the throne room and talk to the king, and everything will be fine. We're not quite right. We'll see.
Are the swords the two only weapons that he's got? Is that...
He will be able to use other weapons as supplemental weapons, but those are his two main forms of combat. What we will be doing instead of the janitorial cleanup of everything and anything around in an RPG game, is what it's going to be is we're going to give the player an opportunity to upgrade the weapons he has. And so you will, with every level, with different quests, you will be able to get better silver swords, better steel swords. So we find out, we get into the castle, turns out the captain of the guard doesn't even know that something is going on inside that he's not even aware of. What we'll do, since we're in a real rush to try to figure out what's going on, we're going to head on in and try to find the king. He's probably in one of his chambers behind the throne room. That's the other thing that we've focused on, is that the architecture and the layout of every place that we've got here is based on real life designs. We've gotten blueprints, we've gotten, you know, source information, source material for actual places. So what we're building on is something that's physically realistic. One of the things that's always bothered us is the fact that you go into some castle and it's just got random rooms strewn with random monsters just for kicks, and no one really knows why those rooms exist. Here we've got a recent grave.
Styles of camera view. One is typical, I would say, typical isometric view, which was used right now. And the second camera view is like in Gothic game, or I would say typical TPP, almost typical, higher. And for both styles, we have a different possibilities of controlling our character. For isometric, we think that the best and the most convenient way is just to use point and click system. And for TPP, we think more advanced players will use rather keyboard plus mouse as in typical TPP games. So we try to convince both groups of players, those are not that experienced, and also the people who are much more experienced.
And this will also hold for all of our UI as well. The UI will be fully customizable, so the layout that you see right now is our suggestion for what's the most convenient, but if you want to move around every element anywhere around the edges of the screen, you can. All your keyboard shortcuts are available, and so on. So what happened here is we saved the king's concubine. She was being attacked by a bunch of assassins. We saved her. We said, okay, cool, what's going on? Where's the king? She gave us the key to his chambers. We are now coming in, and the king is in the middle of a fight with a bunch of guys. So they're trying to nail him. We try to save him. Ooh, we can knock a bunch of them down. Okay. Yeah. So what we'll do now is, instead of finishing the fight here, what we'll show you is what happens as an alternative, because this is another great place to manifest how this story is put together. We chose, when we were in the throne room, we chose the right path. We happened upon the concubine, we saved her, we went on to the king. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the other path. We're going to go left and see what happens at that point.
Will the game be moddable? Will they...
No, I mean in terms of like fan
Creating
or,
mods
or other people
Yeah.
creating mods. Not initially, not the first version of it. We need to focus. It's very difficult to create a moddable game that has a really put together story and the environments that are really compelling. All right, because you have to make some trade-offs in terms of, for example, tile system or whatever.
Right.
So we've moved away from that to script a really great story, and over time we'll see what kind of excitement level exists and see if we want to water it down, I would say.
You have some ideas how to make it moddable somehow. However, we cannot guarantee that those tools will be available on the release date. So that's the point. And I think that this thing will be cleared out later on. We'll make some statements and because we have some cool ideas how to make moddable game out of the existing world, I would say.
Okay.
So that's the basic idea.
Cool.
So here we're in the foyer to where the king's chamber is. The guys are trying to get into him.
What is very important about the whole design of the game is non-linear. You can make completely different choices, and then those choices will influence the game further gameplay, as in this situation. And one of the examples of the freedom, very simple, but it's not common to find in computer games, is that you can try to kill all the mid characters, including very important NPCs. And it's a bit challenging from the design point of view, to be honest, but we manage it. So you will be able even to attack the king and try to kill the king. And in fact, for each very important person, very important for the game or for the story, we have different ways to get out of the situation when this person is killed or was being attacked by us. So we can find somehow information. We can take the information from the other person sometimes. Sometimes, yeah, this person will escape us.
So, just to clear up what's going on here, what the conversation with the king, and we're trying to skip through the conversations because the voice acting is not necessarily anywhere near final. But what's happening is that we save the king, and the king says, "I'm really worried about my concubine. What's going on with her? She's the love of my life. We need to go save her." So off we go. We now went down the other path where we came before, and we're entering the concubine's chamber. Unfortunately, what it turns out is our choice of door affects what happens in the game. When we went the other way, we were in time to save her. Because we got to the king first, we unfortunately were not able to save the concubine, and the king now wants revenge. Things like that, the player will have an opportunity, obviously, or at least hopefully have the urge to try it over, try it again, see what the alternatives are. But such results will have overarching effects on the game world. So the fact that she lives or dies down the line later on in the story will influence, for example, how the king behaves, or will influence relationships with, let's say, maybe her mother, who you meet along the way, who will be either thankful or will hate you or whatever. So we're trying to integrate every aspect of what you play with and what you encounter into the overarching story. And
I think that
that's probably good enough. We don't need to go down.
Maybe
to
we'll
the
show you just last one feature from the major content. It's just a small key feature. The alcohol is the base for the elixirs, and you can make elixirs based on alcohol, but you can drink pure alcohol as well. That's the result. And it's not only the visual effect; it has it's needed for gameplay as well. With some people, you need to drink to get some information out of them.
As in real life.
Yeah.
Your best business is done over a beer somewhere in a tavern, And so we're trying to reflect that aspect of it as well. In taverns, for example, you may need to loosen up a little bit, have a fight in a tavern. That's another aspect of this game that we didn't talk much about, is the fact that your fights are not just sword fights. You are also able to have fist fights. Fist fights will allow you to fight not to the death, and fist fights will be necessary in places like taverns, in places like town, where you don't want to kill somebody because the guards will come and get you, but you need to rough them up a little bit or soften them up to get some information from them, and so on and so forth. So both alcohol and fist fighting and some of the not so noble aspects of human life will have a place in this game.
How much consultation did you get with the author of the books?
Quite a lot, and we have regular contacts with him. He reads some of the scenarios that we put together, and they're all very conformed with his world. So what we're doing is putting a lot of effort into making sure that even the effects or some of the things that the Witcher can or can't do, or the way he behaves, are consistent with his character in the books. He is, for example, he is not a very he's not a very pleasant fellow. He's not welcome at courts and with nobility, and he doesn't feel any allegiance or respect. So if he's going to meet a king, for example, where other people would kneel on one knee and kind of say, show respect, he won't do that. He'll just nod or whatever. So there's little things like that all come together to support the original story.
And what's left to be done?
There's a lot left to be done. We've got, at this point, as on one of the slides earlier, we have the overall design done. We know where we want to go. We have the world mapped out, and a chunk of that is done. We have, as you saw, we have UI, quite a bit of UI cleanup and refinement to do. We've got the world to build, and so we have to finish the animations, finish the locations, go on through that. But at this point we're in a stage where we're doing implementation as opposed to creation or design. So the story, the scenarios are done, the quests are in, at least the mainline quests are defined. We know what we want to do, and now we're sitting there and just cranking through and making sure it happens.
Cool.
So that's kind of the stage where we're at.
So 2006?
That's the goal, yeah. So this is something we will be aiming for code complete before the end of this year, or near the end of this year, and then we will be spending the rest of the time balancing, tuning, cleaning up, doing all the things that you need to do to make sure that the game is actually solid and doesn't require patch on release. Just little details like that.
And how many hours of gameplay do you think?
It's going to be 30 hours for mainline gameplay, so if you just want to do the main quest and get through the game, it's about 30 hours we're estimating right now, and it's probably going to be another 50 if you do all the side quests. So we're going to be doing a lot of stuff that if somebody's a real RPG, grognard, or however you want to put it, he's really into it, that he will be able to spend a lot of time in this game doing all kinds of side quests, discovering different elixir recipes, for example. That's one of the things, the alchemy side, we want to develop that so you can go out and find quests that you actually have to search out quests, which will then result in recipes for new elixirs, or you have to go out and actually get special body parts or whatever from monsters that are not that common, that only occur through quests. So there will be a lot of little side things like that if you really want to get into it, that's definitely available, and it will make it a lot more fun.
Cool.
But mainline is, as I said, it's about 30 hours. I think beyond 30 hours, unless you're going MMP, people start losing, losing their focus. So.
Okay, guys, we've got for you our press box. You'll find there some information about the game, as well as one short story by Andrzej Sapkowski. That's brand new, not the same as last year. In English, so the first one officially translated. Yeah, and the most part, the usual gift. But